I'm Hazelyn, 34, and I built my own consulting firm from the ground up. For years, I showed up for my family, paid for emergencies, mentored my sister's boyfriend, never asked for thanks. But when they blocked me from my own mother's birthday party like I was a stranger, I made a decision that changed everything. Ever been sidelined by people you quietly carried for years? If so, drop your story in the comments. You're not the only one. Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to walk away to protect your peace, hit like and subscribe for more real stories about boundaries, clarity, and quiet power. What happened next might surprise you. I'm the eldest of three, the dependable one. I wasn't the loudest, or the funniest, or the most adored, but if something needed to get done, I was the one they called. Not because they valued my time, just because they knew I'd say yes. I graduated college early, got my first job in IT, and worked my way up without asking for much. No handouts. No introductions. I paid off my loans before I turned 27 and quietly started my own consulting firm, focusing on mid-sized businesses that needed help digitizing their systems. It was steady, not flashy, but it paid well. My parents never really asked about it. "Still doing your tech thing," my dad would say. I'd nod. That was the extent of their interest. But when they needed something, that was different. My brother, Eric, called me in a panic when he got laid off 2 years ago. He wanted help updating his resume and preparing for interviews. We spent 4 evenings going line by line through every job he'd had since high school, rewriting descriptions, framing gaps, rehearsing answers. He got an offer the following month. I didn't even get a thank you text. But 6 weeks later, at a family dinner, he mentioned to my dad how Hazel's resume tips helped, I guess. Dad smiled at him like he'd slayed a dragon. My sister, Hannah, is 6 years younger than me. The golden child. She moved back home after college and treated our parents' house like an extended dorm, laundry piled on chairs, music playing until 2 a.m., friends over constantly. Still, they adored her. She had a big personality, they said. She just needs a little more time to find herself. I covered the security deposit on her first apartment. She never asked outright, but I got a teary phone call at midnight after she realized her part-time barista income wasn't going to cut it. I wired the money the next morning and never brought it up again. Later that year, she invited me to her housewarming. I walked in to see our mom and dad carrying a new espresso machine into her kitchen. We thought it'd make the place feel more like home, Mom beamed. No one mentioned the deposit. But the real moment that cemented my role, background support, never front stage, was 2 birthdays ago. Our parents' 35th wedding anniversary was coming up, and I had the idea to surprise them with a weekend getaway. I found a cozy lakefront B&B 2 hours outside the city. Quiet, beautiful, just their style. I paid for everything in full: the room, the wine tastings, a dinner reservation at the top-rated local place. Hannah handled the presentation, handing them the envelope with the booking confirmation while everyone clapped and smiled in the living room. Later, I overheard Dad say, "Leave it to Liv to come up with something this thoughtful." She didn't correct him. I didn't either. I wasn't raised to expect praise. But there's a difference between humility and erasure. And after enough of these moments, birthdays missed, credits misassigned, favors repackaged, I started keeping score. Quietly. Just for me. I think what made it so hard was how seamless it all looked from the outside. Holiday dinners with matching napkins and inside jokes. Family photos lining the hallway, every year neatly labeled. But in those frames, I was always slightly out of focus. Always standing just off to the side. There's one picture from Hannah's graduation that I'll never forget. The 3 of us, Mom, Dad, and me, smiling at the camera. Hannah's in the center, holding her diploma, arms flung around our parents. I'm in the back, holding her coat and her purse, smiling like I belong. When I saw the photo online a week later, I realized I hadn't been tagged. Over time, I stopped offering things outright. I still showed up when it counted: birthdays, hospital visits, the time Mom slipped on the stairs and needed help with groceries for a month. But I did it all with the quiet calculation of someone who'd learned her value was measured in utility, not affection. No one checked in on me. But if their Wi-Fi was down, I'd get 5 missed calls before noon. That's how I met Josh, Hannah's boyfriend. She brought him to a 4th of July barbecue 3 years ago. He was shy at first, but polite, asked me what I did, actually listened when I answered. A month later, he reached out on LinkedIn. Said he was thinking about switching careers, maybe getting into operations or client support. He'd heard I ran my own firm. I don't usually mix family with business, but something about him struck me as earnest. And frankly, it was the first time anyone connected to our family had treated me like I was someone worth knowing for more than tech help. I offered to let him intern part-time remote. He picked things up fast, smart, curious, reliable. Within 6 months, I hired him full-time. At Thanksgiving that year, my mom gushed about him. Josh is such a steady presence. He's helped Liv grow up a lot. You can really see her calming down. I waited for her to acknowledge the job, the opportunity, the fact that I'd taken a risk on him when no one else would. She never did. Not once. By the time Mom's 60th birthday was approaching, I'd already settled into the role I always played, supportive but invisible. Hannah was organizing something low-key, according to the vague family group text. I offered to help with logistics, booking a space, designing an invite, but got no reply. A week later, Eric replied with a thumbs-up emoji to Hannah's message about catering options. Josh chimed in about playlists. Still, nothing addressed to me. Not even a request for money, which almost felt more suspicious than respectful. I thought maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe they hadn't finalized the list yet. Maybe I'd get a call. So I waited. It never came. Not when they sent out the digital invite. Not when they picked a venue that was 10 minutes from my apartment. Not even when Hannah posted a throwback photo of Mom and tagged everyone in the family except me. The silence was deliberate. A choice. But I'd learned to see choices clearly by then. My entire adult life had been shaped by them. And this one? This one would be no different. A few months before Mom's 60th, I overheard her telling a neighbor on the phone that they were keeping it small this year. I didn't think much of it at the time. She never liked being the center of attention, and big parties always made her anxious. But still, 60 was a milestone. A small dinner sounded unusually quiet for my parents. I called Dad a week later, just to check in, and casually asked if they had anything planned for Mom's birthday. He paused for a second, like he wasn't expecting the question. Yeah, a little get-together. Nothing major. Just family and a few close friends. Hannah's organizing most of it. I can help if you want, I offered. Venue, invites, costs, whatever you need. We've got it handled, he said. His tone was warm but final, the same way you'd wave off someone offering to carry your groceries when your arms were already full. He changed the subject almost immediately. Hey, you remember that guy from church with the classic Corvette? He's selling it, wants way too much, but it's in great shape. I nodded along, letting the conversation drift. But something about the way he'd said it sat wrong. There was a hesitation, a flicker of discomfort, like he'd forgotten I was part of the guest list. The next morning, the family group chat lit up. A string of messages about caterers. Tacos or finger foods? Hannah asked. Eric sent a poll. Josh replied first, tacos. Always. A string of fire emojis followed. No one mentioned a venue. No one tagged me. I scrolled through the thread twice, making sure I hadn't missed something. Then I typed out a reply, any idea on the guest count? Happy to pitch in for food or drinks. I watched the message sit there. Read. No replies. 6 hours later, Eric sent a meme about aging. Everyone laughed. Conversation moved on. The next time I saw Josh was at Dad's house. I'd stopped by to return a wrench set I'd borrowed during a plumbing crisis at my apartment. He and Hannah were in the kitchen, helping Mom prep Sunday dinner. Josh greeted me with the same polite nod he always did, friendly but deferential, like I was still his boss in some unofficial way. I've been meaning to email you, he said. We just signed that construction group as a new client, right? Yeah, they're onboarding this week. Nice, he said, then lowered his voice slightly. Thanks again for giving me a shot. I really mean that. I shrugged. You've earned it. It was the kind of quick exchange I wouldn't have thought twice about under normal circumstances. But something about it felt out of place, like it had to happen in a whisper, in someone else's kitchen, while my mom sliced cucumbers 2 feet away. It occurred to me then, Josh hadn't mentioned the job to them. Or if he had, they didn't seem to care. Later that evening, as we sat down to eat, Mom turned to Josh and smiled. "I don't know what we'd do without you. You're such a calming presence." Hannah grinned. "Seriously. It's like having a grown-up around for once." Everyone laughed. I smiled, too, because it's easier than not, but something tightened behind my ribs. Josh cleared his throat and added, "Just happy to be part of the crew." They raised their glasses. "To Josh," Dad said, lifting his beer. "The guy who holds us all together." And that was it. Not a single mention of where he worked, of who brought him into the fold, of the fact that I'd mentored him for 2 years and promoted him twice. They praised his ambition, his patience, his natural leadership, all qualities I'd helped cultivate. But in that room, they belonged to him alone. A few days later, Hannah posted an Instagram story of printed name tags laid out on a table. "Finalizing the list. Mom's gonna love this." I clicked through the tags. I didn't see mine. Maybe it was a draft, I told myself. Maybe the real list would include me. The following weekend, I got coffee with Zoe, one of my longtime friends from college. She knew my family well enough to pick up on patterns. "They're icing you out," she said plainly, after I described the group chat and the weird silence around the party. "I don't think it's that serious," I said, stirring my drink more aggressively than necessary. "Maybe it's just poor communication." Hannah's always been disorganized. "Hazel," she said, "you run a team of 12. You manage projects across 5 states. You know the difference between chaos and exclusion." I didn't respond. Because she was right. The messages kept coming. Hannah posted sneak peeks of the decor. Eric updated the chat with links to drink dispensers. "Do we want the glass ones or the rustic kind with the little chalkboard labels?" No one ever responded to anything I sent. Eventually, I stopped trying. Josh, to his credit, remained professional at work. Always on time. Always prepared. But I started to notice he'd grown more comfortable with the rest of the team, laughing louder during meetings, offering suggestions with a kind of ease that hadn't been there 6 months earlier. I couldn't blame him. He was doing well. Still, there were moments I caught him watching me. Like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. One Friday afternoon, as we wrapped up our weekly debrief, he lingered behind while the rest of the team filed out. "Hey," he said quietly. "I know it's none of my business, but are you okay?" I looked up from my laptop. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. "Just the party stuff. Hannah said you were probably busy with work and didn't want to be involved. But that didn't sound like you." I stared at him. I offered to help. They said it was handled. His shoulders dropped a little. I figured. I just didn't know if I should say something. "You don't need to be in the middle of it." "I kind of already am," he said. "But okay." He left it there. That weekend, the official invite went out. A digital event with floral accents and soft pink borders. Join us for a celebration of love, laughter, and 60 incredible years. It was addressed to friends and family. I never got one. But I saw it. Because Eric posted it to his story with a caption that read, "Can't wait for this night." I clicked the RSVP link. The guest list was visible. There were over 50 names. Mine wasn't on it. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even mention it to Zoe. Instead, I marked the date in my calendar and scheduled a reminder to buy a gift. Not because I wanted to. Because I knew what was coming next. And I wanted to be ready. The week of the party, I kept waiting for something, an address, a last-minute text, even just a forward of the invite from one of the cousins. Nothing came. The group chat stayed busy. Hannah confirming head count, Eric offering to pick up dessert trays, Josh reminding everyone to bring cash for valet. Every message was a reminder that I wasn't part of the plan. By Wednesday, I gave up pretending I was waiting to be included. I texted Dad directly. "Hey, where's the party being held? Want to drop off a gift?" He replied 2 hours later. "It's just close friends and family this time. Appreciate the thought though. No venue. No time. Just a polite dismissal dressed up as logistics." Close friends and family. I stared at the message longer than I should have. I reread it 3 times, trying to find a different interpretation. There wasn't one. I didn't respond. Instead, I closed my laptop, walked into the kitchen, and started wrapping the gift I'd already picked out weeks earlier. A leather-bound photo album, personalized with Mom's initials in gold on the front. Inside were 60 pages, each one with a printed photo and a short note, starting from her childhood and ending with the grandkids. I'd spent 2 weekends curating the pictures. Scanned old prints from shoe boxes in their garage. Emailed cousins. Even tracked down a black and white snapshot of Mom at age 5, sitting on her dad's shoulders at a state fair. I tied a white ribbon around it and slid a small card under the bow. Happy 60th, Mom. Wishing you all the love you gave and deserved. The day of the party was cold, overcast, with that kind of static in the air that makes everything feel slightly off. I wore a navy dress and a long black coat. Nothing dramatic. Just clean, respectful, like someone visiting a gallery opening or a memorial. I didn't tell anyone I was going. I didn't need permission. The venue was easy enough to find. Hannah had posted a selfie in front of the marquee earlier that morning. Can't wait to celebrate this queen tonight, the caption read. Josh was in the background adjusting a tablecloth. They looked happy. Focused. Not thinking about me. When I pulled into the lot, I kept the engine running for a minute. I could see the main entrance from where I parked. There were clusters of people arriving, some older couples, a few kids, a lot of women in floral prints, and men in blazer sweater combos. It was a crowd my parents would have called just close friends and family. I walked slowly, gift in hand. The air smelled like champagne and rented eucalyptus garlands. At the door, there was a small table with name tags and a woman holding a clipboard. But I didn't get that far. Dad was standing just outside, greeting guests as they came in. He spotted me halfway up the steps and smiled, almost reflexively, like I was just another attendee. Then his face shifted. Oh, hey, he said, stepping forward. Wasn't expecting you. I lifted the gift a little, almost like a peace offering. Just came to drop this off. He looked down at the box in my hands, then back up at me. That's really thoughtful, Hazel. Thanks for doing that. There was an awkward pause. Guests flowed past us, brushing the edges of the conversation. I stood there waiting for the part where he'd say, come in. Instead, he glanced at the clipboard table behind him. It's a tight list. We're at capacity. I blinked. Right. Of course. It's not personal, he added quickly. We just had to make some hard cuts. You know how Hannah gets with logistics. Behind him, I saw Eric standing near the bar, laughing with one of our uncles. He glanced my way for a second, then turned back to his drink. Hannah was off to the side, directing someone toward the DJ table. She caught sight of me, then looked past me like she was checking the weather. Josh, standing near the photo booth, noticed me too. He didn't look away. But he didn't move either. I looked back at Dad. Well, I said, keeping my voice even. I'll let you get back to it. He nodded, shifting the weight of the door open with his shoulder to let someone else through. I handed him the box. Make sure she gets it? I asked. Of course. He didn't thank me. I turned and walked back down the steps, the cold biting at the space between my gloves and my sleeves. I didn't rush. I didn't look back. There was no dramatic moment. No shouting. No confrontation. Just that strange, hollow quiet that settles in when something finally breaks and you realize it's been cracked for years. As I reached my car, I saw another family pulling in, 2 kids, their mom in heels, a man holding a bouquet of tulips. The little girl dropped something as she stepped out and scrambled to pick it up. Her dad smiled and opened the door for her. The whole thing took 3 seconds, but for some reason it lodged in my chest. I got into the driver's seat, buckled in, and sat there with my hands on the wheel. A part of me had expected this, had rehearsed it. But there's a difference between knowing you're being excluded and hearing the words out loud. You're not on the list. Not angry. Not cruel. Just matter of fact. Like he was telling me the weather. I drove home in silence. No music. No podcasts. Just the steady hum of the tires on wet pavement. When I got back, I hung up my coat, reheated some leftover soup, and ate standing at the counter. My phone buzzed once, an Instagram tag. Hannah had posted a group photo. Grateful for everyone who showed up tonight to celebrate our mom. Family means everything. I didn't open the post. Just deleted the notification. Then I put my phone on silent and went to bed. I didn't cry when I got home. I didn't kick off my shoes in a dramatic pile or throw the gift receipt in the trash. I just sat, coat still on, bag still slung over my shoulder, staring at the quiet stillness of my living room. The overhead light hummed faintly. There were dishes in the sink I hadn't touched in 2 days. A scarf still looped over the back of a dining chair from earlier in the week. Everything was normal, which only made it worse. I pulled out my phone, not even sure why. Maybe I thought someone would have texted. Maybe a cousin. A neighbor. Even just one of those polite check-ins people send when they know something uncomfortable has happened. Nothing. The only unread message was from my banking app confirming the delivery charge for the champagne I'd had sent to the party. It arrived an hour before I did. I'd even included a printed note, to love, aging, and the woman who taught us both. Happy 60th, Mom. I tapped the phone screen off and set it down face first on the table. The next morning, Josh texted. Josh, hey, did I miss you last night? Hannah said you couldn't make it. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't know how to respond, but because I wasn't sure it was even worth it. I didn't reply. I got dressed, made coffee, and sat at my desk like it was any other Monday. But something had shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was more like a kind of quiet evacuation, like someone had cleared out a floor of my mind and turned the lights off. Later that afternoon, during a staff call, someone cracked a joke about how long I'd been training Josh, how he was practically the second in command now. Everyone laughed. And for the first time, I didn't. It hit me then, not just about Josh or the party, but the whole thing. My family had been editing me out for years. Carefully. Casually. Like cropping someone out of a photo, not because you hate them, but because they're not really part of the shot you want to keep. I'd spent so long thinking I was the dependable one. The glue. The one who held everything together behind the scenes. But maybe that was just another version of invisible. A more useful kind. The realization wasn't dramatic. It was arithmetic. Cold, logical. One memory added to another and another until the sum became too obvious to ignore. The time I covered Eric's rent for 2 months after he lost his job. No one knew. The time Mom called crying because the washing machine broke and I had a new one delivered the next morning. She told people Dad had pulled some strings for a deal. The year I flew across the country twice for Hannah's theater showcases, once paying for her roommate's ticket because she couldn't afford it. Hannah gave a speech afterward and thanked everyone who believed in her. I sat in the back row, next to a fire extinguisher, and clapped until my hands hurt. I used to tell myself it didn't matter. That giving wasn't about being seen. That support, real support, was quiet. But what no one tells you is that silence can start to look like agreement. Like complicity. Like consent to your own erasure. I'd been so careful not to take up space that I hadn't noticed when people started pretending I wasn't there at all. That night, I pulled out an old external drive from my office drawer and opened the folder labeled Family Stuff. Inside were PDFs of travel itineraries I'd organized, budgets I'd made for our parents' anniversary, resumes I'd edited, photos I'd retouched, names of hotels, flights I'd booked under other people's logins. All of it. I scrolled through it slowly, the way people look through boxes of donated clothes before letting them go. This was the proof, in timestamped metadata, that I'd been present. Even if no one remembered it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. What I felt was something closer to done. I didn't send any texts. I didn't call to clear the air. I didn't write some dramatic group message demanding an explanation. Instead, I opened my calendar and started moving things around. I declined the next 3 Sunday dinners. I canceled the recurring birthday reminder for Hannah. I took myself off the shared holiday spreadsheet. No announcement. Just quiet subtraction. 2 days later, I got a message from Eric. Eric, hey, thought you were coming to Dad's Sunday. Everything okay? I replied with a single sentence. Taking some space. All good. He didn't ask a follow-up. By the end of the week, I noticed Hannah had removed me from the family planning doc entirely. No comment. Just a quiet update. Like they all knew what this was now. Like I'd finally confirmed the role they'd unofficially written for me a long time ago. I wasn't part of the cast. And honestly, that was fine. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to audition. Not for their invitations. Not for their praise. Not for their version of family that only made room for me when it was convenient. I'd spent years shrinking to fit into a space that was never designed for me. Now I was building my own. Monday morning came without fanfare. My alarm buzzed at 6:15. I got up, made coffee, answered 3 emails. Everything looked exactly the same: calendar blocks, color-coded notes, Slack messages waiting. But something in me had settled. Not softened, not hardened, just clarified. Josh's contract was up for renewal at the end of the month. I'd flagged the reminder a few weeks back and planned to offer him a promotion. He was efficient, well-liked by the team, smart enough to manage a client portfolio on his own with minimal oversight. Under normal circumstances, it would have been an easy yes. But normal didn't apply anymore. I opened his file. Scanned through the performance reviews I'd written myself. All accurate. All fair. But they no longer told the whole story. I scheduled a meeting with HR. It was short. Professional. I explained that I wouldn't be renewing Josh's contract. No policy breach, no incident. Just a pivot in leadership alignment. The HR manager nodded, took notes, and asked if I wanted to be present for the offboarding meeting. I said yes. By Wednesday, the paperwork had been finalized. Josh showed up unannounced on Thursday afternoon. My assistant buzzed me. "Josh is here," she said. "He doesn't have an appointment, but he looks like he thinks he's in trouble." I told her to send him in. He stepped into my office like someone waiting to be called to the front of a classroom. He looked around as if confirming this was real. I gestured for him to sit. He didn't. "Is this a mistake?" he asked. "I got the notice from HR this morning. About the contract not being renewed." "It's not a mistake." Look, I don't understand. My numbers are good. My last feedback session was great." "It was," I said. "You've been consistent." "Then why?" I folded my hands. "Because I can't keep extending opportunities to people who stand by while I'm erased." He blinked. "Is this about the party?" "It's not just about the party." He took a breath, like he wanted to argue, then let it go. "I didn't know what to do," he said finally. "I saw you at the door. I thought maybe it was some mix-up. I wasn't sure if I should say anything." "You made a choice," I said calmly. "You chose to say nothing." Josh looked stunned. Not indignant. Not angry. Just genuinely lost. Like it hadn't occurred to him that passivity had consequences. "I didn't want to cause drama," he said. "It wasn't my place." "That's the thing," I said. "You've been benefiting from your place for 2 years now. The job. The training. The credibility. You never once corrected anyone when they assumed you did it on your own. And then when it counted, when silence felt like agreement, you opted out." His jaw tensed. "I didn't mean, I know," I said. "You didn't mean to. But you did. That's the point." He looked down at the edge of my desk, eyes scanning the grain like it might offer an answer. "I just thought," he started, then stopped. "I didn't want to lose them." "I already had," I said. "So you didn't have to choose." The room went quiet. Just the distant hum of office chatter beyond the door and the soft buzz of my monitor. Josh finally sat down. Slowly. "I'm sorry," he said. "I mean it. I believe you. Is there anything I can do to fix it?" I shook my head. "This isn't about punishment. It's just clarity. You made a decision, and I made one too." He nodded once. The kind of nod people give when they've been told something they're still trying to process. "I should go," he said. I stood as he did. He didn't offer a handshake. I didn't either. After he left, I sat down and reopened the client assignment matrix. I redistributed his accounts by the end of the hour. It wasn't personal. It was practical. That evening, Hannah called me. I let it go to voicemail. Then Eric texted. "Josh told us you let him go. What's going on?" I didn't respond. An hour later, Dad emailed. Subject: "Hope we can talk, body. I'm trying to understand what's happening here." Josh has been a great asset to your company. It seems rash to let him go over a personal disagreement. I archived it without replying. Because this wasn't rash. It was overdue. Every time I'd swallowed a slight, every time I'd rewritten my own contribution as no big deal, every time I let someone else collect credit because it was easier than correcting them, I had been feeding a structure that treated me as optional. And when someone like Josh came in and got folded into the family seamlessly, praised, prioritized, protected, I realized that structure didn't just ignore me. It actively replaced me. So no, I didn't owe him continued access. I didn't owe him a platform or a salary or a professional endorsement just because he hadn't raised his voice while I was being shut out. Doing nothing was a choice. And finally, so was mine. The first sign it had made its way back to them was Hannah's name lighting up on my phone 2 Saturdays later. I was standing in line at the post office, half listening to a podcast, when I saw the notification, Hannah, too. The first message, seriously? The second, how could you fire him? He had nothing to do with it. I didn't respond. She called the next morning. I let it ring. Then she tried again that night. Eventually she left a voicemail. Her voice was tight, controlled, the way it got when she was trying not to yell. I don't know what kind of personal score you're trying to settle, but Josh didn't deserve that. He had nothing to do with your issues with mom and dad. He looked up to you. You just blindsided him, and now he's scrambling. You said you were better than this. I replayed the message twice. Not because it surprised me, but because it didn't. She was so sure it was about him. So sure I'd acted out of revenge. Not restraint. Not clarity. Not finally doing what I should have done a year ago. Dad sent a guilt-laced email 3 days later. The subject line was heavy heart. He opened with how confused and disappointed he was. Then came the usual script. We may not always communicate well. We've always wanted what's best. We don't understand where this is coming from. And then a paragraph about Josh. About what a good fit he'd been for the family, how much potential he had. How hurt Hannah was. How disruptive it was to treat a professional relationship like a personal issue. He ended it with, I hope you can find a way to separate business from family. That's what leaders do. I didn't reply. Mom never said anything. Not even a forwarded article. Not even a polite, hope you're doing okay, message with a line of ellipses at the end. Nothing. But the silence wasn't new. It was just finally symmetrical. I went about my days. Quietly. Productively. Without apology. A few weeks later, I ran into a mutual friend of Josh's at a networking event. We weren't close, but he knew we'd worked together. Hey, he said after the small talk. You hear about Josh? I think he's still looking. I nodded. Yeah, I figured. He's good, the guy said. Just doesn't seem to know how to explain what happened. Keeps it vague. I sipped my drink. Sometimes vague is the best someone can do. He nodded like he wasn't sure if I was agreeing or not. I didn't elaborate. The funny thing is, I didn't feel triumphant. There was no pleasure in hearing Josh was still floating. It wasn't even relief. It just confirmed what I already knew. I'd been propping up more than one thing. And when I let go, some of it wobbled. The family dinner shifted after that. I didn't need a report to know. Eric's girlfriend texted me a meme a week later and added, almost as an afterthought, we missed you on Sunday. It was quieter than usual. I didn't ask for details, but I could picture it easily. No one bragging about Josh's big moves. No one deflecting awkward pauses by asking what I was working on. No one filling the gap. Not dramatic, just a quiet blank space. A place where something used to be. One night, I opened Instagram and noticed Hannah had archived most of her birthday party highlights. The group photo was gone. So was the caption about family being everything. I didn't read into it. But I noticed. Things kept unfolding in small ways. Dad stopped forwarding industry articles. Mom didn't include me in the Easter brunch thread. Eric texted less. The group chat slowed. And the strangest part? I didn't miss it. What I missed were things I'd never had in the first place: curiosity, credit, genuine inclusion. Now that I'd stopped chasing them, the absence felt cleaner. Less raw. Like removing a splinter you'd stopped noticing until it was gone. At work, things sharpened. My team stepped up. We hired 2 new analysts. I delegated more, not out of exhaustion, but intention. People started asking questions they hadn't before. Not about what happened with Josh, but about me. Clients requested me by name. A local business journal reached out for an interview. When the article ran, Dad didn't say a word. But an old colleague of his did. He emailed me out of the blue. Didn't know you were that Hazel. Impressive. Your dad must be proud. I didn't bother correcting him. There was no need. Let him assume the pride had been visible. Let him believe the version where I'd always had a seat at the table. The truth was quieter, but sturdier. And in that space, without Josh, without the family dinners, without the soft erasure I'd mistaken for love, I was becoming something new. Not louder. Not colder. Just more visible. But only to the people who had bothered to look. It had been 4 months since the last time I saw Josh in my office. By then, the fallout had mostly settled into something quieter. I was no longer the subject of angry texts or family side comments, at least not that I heard. They'd moved on, or more likely, learned to talk about me in places I didn't frequent. Either way, the storm had passed. One Friday afternoon, I got a message. Not through work. Just a simple, short email to my personal address. Subject, coffee? Body, hi. I hope this isn't overstepping. I've been thinking about everything that happened, and I'd like to apologize properly if you're open to it. I'd appreciate the chance to meet, no expectations, no agenda. Just coffee. My treat. It wasn't dramatic. No guilt trip. No long-winded justifications. Just a line in the sand he was asking to step over gently. I read it twice, then again the next day. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel curious either. But I did feel ready. So I wrote back. Sure. Thursday at 11? I'll be at Stillwater Cafe, the one near the park. Your treat. He replied within the hour. See you then. Stillwater wasn't far from my office, but I picked it intentionally. It wasn't one of the spots our team used for meetings, and it was too quiet for casual run-ins. I didn't want this to be a performance, for him or for me. Just a conversation. He was already sitting when I arrived. Same jacket I'd seen a dozen times in the office, sleeves pushed up to his elbows. There was a coffee cup in front of him untouched. When he saw me, he stood. Awkward but genuine. Hey. I nodded, hung up my coat, ordered a drink, and sat down across from him. He looked older. Or maybe just more tired. Less polished. Less careful. We didn't make small talk. I won't take up much of your time, he said. I've had a lot of space to think. And I needed to say thank you. And I'm sorry. I let him speak. I didn't get it then. Not really. I thought if I stayed neutral, I was staying safe. But I wasn't neutral. I was complicit. And I don't think I understood what it felt like to be erased. Or how I was benefiting from it. He paused. Let the words hang. I kept thinking I didn't do anything. But then I realized exactly. I didn't do anything. That was the problem. I nodded. Not to comfort him. Just to confirm. Yeah. He looked down at his hands. I didn't reach out sooner because I didn't want it to seem transactional. Like I was trying to get back in your good graces for a job or a reference. I'm not. That door's closed. I respect that. I appreciated how plainly he said it. Not fishing. Not pleading. Just acknowledging where we stood. I've learned a lot, he said. About how I move through the world. How easy it was for me to sit in a room full of people who forgot you and still feel welcome. I stirred my coffee. That's the thing about comfort. It doesn't demand much from you. He looked up. Exactly. We sat there for a minute. The cafe was quiet. A couple in the corner was arguing softly over a spreadsheet, and the barista was restocking biscotti behind the counter. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notepad. I don't know if this is weird, but I've been writing stuff down. Just reflections. Things I noticed after everything. I didn't ask to see it, and he didn't offer. That felt right. He tucked it away and leaned back. I'm not expecting forgiveness. I just didn't want to stay silent again. I studied him for a second. You said it changed you, I said. How? His answer came without hesitation. I think I finally understand what it means to earn your place. Before, I assumed showing up was enough. That being nice, being useful, was the same thing as showing up for someone. It's not. No, I said. It's not. He looked relieved. Not because I'd validated him, but because I hadn't shut the door. He stood up when I did. No hard feelings, I said, offering a hand. But just so we're clear, this doesn't circle back to Hannah. Or the family. He shook my hand. It stays here. And it did. We didn't become friends. We didn't meet for coffee again. But every once in a while, he'd send a short message, an article he thought I'd appreciate, a book he was reading, a note saying he'd applied to a position he was excited about. I never offered him another job. That wasn't what this was about. It was about two people choosing to stand in the truth of what happened, without rewriting it. And that was enough. Not because it fixed anything, but because it didn't pretend to. It's been a year. The company's doubled in size. Not overnight, and not because of some magical funding round, just steady, intentional growth. We hired 3 new project leads. I let go of 2 people who were good on paper but never pulled their weight. And for the first time since I started the firm, I'm only managing 1 client directly. The rest? I delegate. I've gotten better at that, at not doing everything myself, at not confusing availability with value. I've started choosing who I pour into. Not out of spite, but because the last year taught me the cost of offering support to people who treat it like air, free, invisible, expected. The team knows it too. There's a culture shift now. More accountability. More clarity. When someone gets credit, they know exactly where it came from. At home, things are quieter. Not empty, not cold, just clean. The family still doesn't talk about the party. No one brings up that night. No one asks about Josh. The group chat has returned to life in its own weird way. Eric sends sports updates. Hannah forwards reels with captioned baby giggles. My birthday came and went, and this time, I got a text from each of them. Nothing dramatic. Just short messages with the balloon emoji and a hope it's a good one. I didn't respond right away. But I didn't delete them either. I don't hold grudges. I just keep receipts. Zoe joked once that I should write a memoir called The Quiet Exit. Not because I slammed a door on my way out, but because I never needed to. I let the silence do the talking. I let absence explain itself. I gave people every chance to show me who they were, and then I adjusted. There's a kind of peace that comes with that. Not righteous. Not victorious. Just steady. The kind that doesn't need witnesses. I still think about that night at the party sometimes. Not the moment at the door. Not my dad's voice saying you're not on the list. That part is blurry now, dulled at the edges. What stayed with me was what happened after. The line that cut through the music and the chatter. Josh's voice, calm but firm. That's my boss. That's the part people don't talk about. But they remember. I know because Zoe heard about it from someone's cousin. Because Hannah changed the subject when a friend mentioned your sister, the one with the company. Because my aunt told me at a wedding that she always admired the way I carried myself and left it at that. That sentence, those 3 words, didn't fix anything. It didn't undo the years. It didn't rewrite the party. But it did put something on the record. I'd walked away without a scene. Without a raised voice. Without demanding space. And somehow, I still took up more room than they expected. That's what power looks like when it's real. When it's built, not inherited, not borrowed, not granted by proximity, but earned and held quietly. It's not loud. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't shout over people who won't listen. It just shows up, delivers the work, and walks out when it's no longer welcome. And sometimes, it leaves a sentence behind. Something that sticks. Because no matter how hard people try to minimize you, how carefully they edit the photo, crop the edges, mute the sound, there's always a moment when the truth slips out. And in that moment, everyone hears it. Even if they never say your name. If you've ever been the quiet one who held everything together only to be pushed aside, what did you do? Did you speak up, walk away, or stay silent? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. And if this story hit close to home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder. Being quiet doesn't mean being invisible.